In terms of standing up for other people, I grew up in a household where my father, as an ex-serviceman, was very active in the Returned Servicemen's League. So I suppose to that extent it was fairly natural that if you saw something needed doing, you went out and did it. Well, it all started for me when I met my first Aboriginal person, and what I remember as a relatively young teenager was a sense of puzzlement. Why wasn't this person treated in the way that I expected all Australians to be treated? It's almost impossible, I think, for an Australian child at school in 2014 to imagine the Australia that I found when I was a schoolboy in the mid-1950s. An Australia where Aboriginal people were confined to reservations on the edge of town, an Australia where they weren't counted, an Australia where they didn't get the vote. They're simple illustrations of what a different Australia it was and how those things needed to change.
I think one of the things that Fred understands is that to achieve real change in this arena requires a long-term commitment and sheer persistence and effort.
Fred is a passionate advocate for Aboriginal reconciliation and Aboriginal rights. He's a good listener, he's good at relationships, and that's enabled him to develop lifelong trust and lifelong friendships.
Governments on their own are not the answer. Governments have a very important role to play, but essentially there's a whole of community effort required here, and the task requires working in respectful relationships with Aboriginal and Islander people.
His commitment, his drive and his desire for a better place, a better world that includes our peoples, Aboriginal peoples, is second to none.
What I really love about Fred is his understanding of the importance of connection to country for Indigenous people. All of the work he's done over the decades, helping people to reconnect with their land, their culture, and passing stories down to the next generations.
While celebrating the positives of where we're at in 2014, I wouldn't want to minimise the enormous challenges that we face right now. The imprisonment rate of young Aboriginal people is an absolute tragedy. And if we don't deal with those issues, then we are certainly failing as a nation.
He has never given up on the causes that he feels passionately about for Australia and trying to make Australia a better place.
What people basically want in a politician is that you do have some views of your own and that you fight for those views. You mightn't always be able to have them put forward by your party, but people like to know that within your party you're fighting for the thing you believe in. Constitutional recognition matters because it's part of the sort of story of Australia. Our constitution in 1900 effectively excluded Aboriginal people. I think that Aboriginal people feel that the cultures that they've preserved here for tens of thousands of years are at risk of disappearing. I think an acknowledgement in the Constitution of their place in Australia would be a big plus for the country and for them.
Fred has been instrumental in supporting me and inspiring me to be involved and carry on the work that I'm doing.
I would like to see Australians recognising the reality that Aboriginal people see themselves in two lights as Australians. They are fully equal citizens and should be acknowledged as such. But in addition, they are proud members of their own collectives. They're Noongars, they're Yamaji, they're Adnamatna, and they are part of the ongoing reality of Australia, and I'd like to see the widespread celebration of that. When I was young, Aboriginal people might have been justified in thinking that every hand was turned against them. Mostly they can look around now and say, by gosh, we've got a lot of friends and allies. And that, I think, is why it's such a promising time.